Media Evaluation Question 1. In what ways does your media product use, develop, or challenge forms and conventions of real media products? To start, I'll talk about the masthead of the magazine. Masthead's the title of the magazine placed on the front page so that the buyer knows exactly what magazine they're buying, and if they've never purchased that magazine before, the masthead helps gain an insight into what magazine they're buying. For example, the rock and heavy metal music magazine Kerrang gains its name from the sound made when playing a power chord on a distorted electric guitar, making its potential reader instantly associate the magazine with those two genres. Whereas the magazines Q and NME contain a wider range of music, so their titles are more generalised, with Q being associated with the cue when music begins, and NME meaning New Music Express. Knowing this, I decided to find an appropriate name for my magazine that was going to focus on heavy metal. This meant I needed to do some research. The first names I came up with were Metalhead and Headbanger, both of which are slang terms for the heavy metal fan, and this would mean that the magazine would be easy to associate with heavy metal. However, when I posed it as an idea, it wasn't exactly popular with everyone. The next name I came up with was Amplifier, an amplifier being something that electric guitars are plugged into to increase the sound output. Electric guitars are a central part of heavy metal, and so Amplifier sounded appropriate, but it could have been the title of several other magazines like Electronic Music, so it was too general. I then came up with Distortion, an obvious nod towards the fact that when noise is played through the amplifier, it is distorted. This idea of distortion appealed to the common theme of heavy metal sounding chaotic, but it suffered the same problem as Amplifier. It was too easy to confuse with another type of magazine. The final name I chose, and the one that I decided on eventually, was Thrash. Thrash metal is a subgenre of metal that includes many famous bands like Slayer, Megadeth, and Metallica, obviously associating it with that particular genre of music. Thrash is also quite a short title, making it appear blunt and to the point, like many of the songs sung in heavy metal. It's made it the obvious masthead choice for the magazine, and proved extremely popular when I posed it. The next step was to choose a font for the masthead. To do this, I once again looked at other heavy metal magazines like Kerrang and Metal Hammer to see what kind of conventions are included. One common theme was having the masthead appear destroyed or damaged. For example, Kerrang's masthead has a shattered glass pattern on it, and Metal Hammer has a part of the masthead removed which makes the shape of the word metal. This idea of destruction obviously seems like a logical choice as it conveys the rough and aggressive nature of heavy metal music. I looked at several fonts available on the internet site 1001fonts.com and eventually found a font I liked. It was called Midnight Hour and was chosen because of two reasons. One, the font had a pattern across it which looked like it had pieces taken out of it, or perhaps could be seen as a splatter of liquid. Both of the ideas appealed to the violent nature of heavy metal. The second reason I chose it was because it was large and bold, indicating strength and power. Heavy metal music is known for the power and huge amounts of sound in its vocals and music. When my masthead is placed next to mastheads of the same genre, it blends in well. I also had to decide where to place it on the page. Conventionally, mastheads are either placed in the top left or across the top of the page. I decided on the latter, as masthead, when used in this fashion, dominates the top of the magazine and conforms to the stereotypes set by other metal magazines. When taking the picture for my front cover, I decided to look at the various kinds of clothing worn by heavy metal bands. There are relatively few kinds of clothing to choose from, with most bands such as Metallica and Anthrax being posed in black t-shirts with short sleeves and jeans. My front cover model obviously had to wear these, so that a potential reader, when looking at it on the shelf, would instantly know what kind of magazine they were looking at. The sunglasses my model wears on the face are another convention of heavy metal artists, reinforcing the genre further. Looking at various issues of Kerrang and Metal Hammer, I found that many of the artists choose an active pose close to the camera to appear bold and aggressive, much like the nature of heavy metal music. However, there are a few magazines where the model is standing without an active pose, but they still appear imposing. I chose this idea for my front cover image, in which my cover model's head, shoulders and upper torso are the only things shown, but they take up a large portion of the page. The crossing of his arms is usually a defensive sign, and in this case it also makes him seem more imposing on the front cover. My artist's gaze is directed straight towards the camera out of the reader, creating an immediate connection, much like other magazines. There is no definitive type of shot that is used exclusively for heavy metal magazines. It varies from magazine to magazine. For example, you can clearly see here a medium close-up being used, while here there is a medium long shot. I chose to use a medium close-up as it makes my particular artist seem definitely more imposing on the page, which is one of the traditional conventions of a heavy metal magazine. My front cover features several of the conventions that are common to most heavy metal music magazines. For example, the masthead is placed behind the cover model, creating a common theme of layers, something I continued on with DPS and contents pages. In my research, I found that these layers are extremely consistent in all of the magazines, and this makes them seem chaotic, much like the genre of music the magazines contain. The final layer on the front page is placed over the top of the artist. This would be my main cover line. I used the words world exclusive on it to make it appeal to a reader generally with superlative language, something that most other magazines use frequently. The quote I put below, "in the mind of a madman," uses alliteration, something not so common in heavy metal music magazines. I also use this on the top bar of my magazine, and this is one of the few ways I've actually deviated from the usual conventions. The fonts on the front page were all chosen for a specific role. On many front covers, there are different colours used to differentiate between the important parts of the cover lines. I use both colour and different fonts. For example, all my band and artist names are in a red font, highlighting them against the basic white text around them. My contents page has a very specific but unique structure to it when compared to other magazines. For example, Kerrang has two main columns of images and articles, and then a side column with an editor's word and extras. It also has a large main image across the top in all of its issues. Many magazines use 3 columns, and I decided to conform to this idea by adding 3 equal-sized columns, making one stretch almost all the way to the top of the page, and the others being slightly shorter. This allowed me to put a large main image in the top right-hand corner. This large image makes it easy for the reader to know who is the most important in this particular magazine. On top of this picture, I placed the name of the artist and a page number, a staple of most magazines, and in heavy metal they are often large and easy to see, yet out of the way of the main image focus. I added 2 extra images at the bottom, one relating to the competition on my front page, and the second featuring a second artist whom I made up purely for the purpose of the magazine. The hockey mask he wears is another stereotype of metal bands, such as Slipknot, who wear masks to appear inhuman. This image therefore reinforces the genre of the magazine. In my 3 columns I placed separate sections for each of the articles in my magazine, so it would appear more professional and a reader could easily make out which articles will contain what sort of information. All music magazines divide their sections up in certain ways. My divisions were broken down in a similar way to Kerrang's, therefore conforming to another heavy metal convention. I also added in an editor's column that was seen in Kerrang as well as several other magazines in an effort to conform to another convention. I decided to have 2 double-page spreads, a convention seen a lot in the main articles of magazines. On the first double page I had a wide picture of my fictional artist. The shot is a medium-long shot, a trait I adopted from magazines like Kerrang and Q, so that the artist can be seen in the bold position that emphasises their genre or what the article is about. For my picture I decided to have the artist holding his hands up in the sky in the horns position, something common to the heavy metal genre for fans and artists alike, instantly reinforcing the genre. The position my model is in is actually similar to a Kerrang magazine I researched. When researching the location I was going to take this photo in, I discovered it had to be outside in a generally dull-looking location. I chose a garage that had a grey front with a few minor dents in it, therefore allowing my artist to stand out, as well as conforming to the genre's stereotype of aggression. The page furniture I used was the large red banner that I could place my article on, as well as the main article title from my front cover. It's kept a consistent theme to the magazine, and meant that it was easy to know whom the article spoke of, as the artist was already seen on the front cover. This has also been seen in other magazines like Kerrang. I also placed a pull quote below the title, something that is used in all music magazines that attempt to draw the reader in by offering an idea of what will be included in the article. I believe I constructed an appropriate narrative voice by adding an expletive in, making the article seem casual and relatable. On the second page I had the rest of my article. My article keeps the narrative voice constructed in the original pull quotes as it has numerous expletives and makes it seem like a casual conversation. I chose to do it in this style instead of the question and answer as it made it feel more real, made it easier to relate to the fictional artist. In my magazine I also constructed an appropriate house style. The colours mainly used in rock and heavy metal music are red, black and white, seen in several Kerrang, Mojo, Q and Metal Hammer magazines, all featuring these kinds of bands. Because of this, I decided to select these 3 colours to be the colours of my magazine. This means the genre is identifiable easily by any potential reader. Throughout the magazine, I kept the background black consistently, to therefore construct an appropriate running house style through the colour of the background. Mojo magazine does this for its main article and front cover, as well as Kerrang. I made sure all the text was a consistent font, Century Gothic, which was chosen for its name, as metal is a very gothic genre of music. The name of the artist in the main article was kept on every page, making it easy to know who the magazine was focusing on. My masthead's font was used for the word contents on the contents page, keeping the titles consistent and strengthening the house style even more. All magazines construct a house style, and I believe I have an appropriate one for my genre. Overall, I believe my magazine conforms to many of the conventions of real media products on the market through constructing an appropriate house style for the use of photography and the layout of the magazine.